All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Ben Sugar. I'm the senior trail builder with the Trail Conference. Let me go ahead and get some video going here. But hopefully I'm sharing my screen with all of you. And this is Ask a Corps Member, kind of an informal way to learn a little bit more about our Americorps Conservation Corps program. And here is the Corps manager herself joining in. So we are a little bit, it's a small number of us this evening, so we can probably be a little informal. If you could, those of you who are not Trail Conference staff or Corps members, if you could type your names into the chat box, which you'll see a button for, should be at the bottom of your screen. That will help us keep attendance, and so we know how many people are attending these webinars, which helps us for a variety of reasons. And let's see, one other thing. Normally, if you want to type a question into the chat box, that's fine, or raise your hand. But with just a handful of us, if someone just needs to just kind of pipe up and ask a question, that's probably fine too for tonight. Or feel free to raise your hand or put something in the chat box if you're having some sort of technical issue, or if I've got something in my teeth or what have you, and you want to let me know. But anyway, so before we get started, we've got two Corps members here with me. My role is I help supervise and plan for and facilitate the work that the trail crews do, but that's not the whole sum of our program, as you'll see. So Frank Casimir is a member of our Palisades Trail Crew this year. He's been working in Sterling Forest. And Dylan Medici, is that how you spell it, Dylan, or pronounce it?
Oh yeah, that's right, Medici.
Okay, is a trail steward this year, and we'll talk a little bit more about what that entails in just a bit. So thank you for coming, both of you, and Dylan at the last second. I'm glad you're here. We got a perspective from a different program, so that's helpful. But so hopefully those of you who are here just attending the webinar are familiar with the Trail Conference and what we do. Founded in 1920, essentially originally as a kind of a tramping or hiking club that also wanted to build trails in the area, and responsible for building the first section of the Appalachian Trail in what's now somewhere in Harriman, Bear Mountain State Park. So we're mostly a volunteer-powered organization that builds, maintains, protects public trails and now public lands as well. So got some cool historical photos of folks rock barring and moving rocks by hand in the woods back in, I'm going to guess this is in the 60s or maybe early 70s. Other than some safety precautions, this is more or less how we still do it today. So it's cool stuff. So just really quickly, what you see here on the left is our Trail Conference headquarters, the Darlington Schoolhouse in Mahwah, New Jersey. And these are the different regions we're active, all the way up into the Catskills in the north and east of the Hudson, all the way down into the 5 boroughs of New York City, and west into more or less the northern third of New Jersey. So Hudson Valley, northern New Jersey, and New York itself. So these are our fundamental values. So we are a values-based organization since we're a nonprofit. And some of the key ones are that volunteers are our superheroes, the joys of nature belong to everyone, environmental conservation is a shared duty. The others are also very important, but these are some of the most animating ones for our program. Hopefully by now, most people are familiar at least a little bit with what Americorps is. Americorps is a federal program. So it exists nationwide. Started in 1993 as kind of a civil society service program, meant to be a little bit like a domestic version of the Peace Corps initially. So members commit to a term of service rather than it being a typical job. And it can vary in terms of what fields they're in. It could be education, public health, and environmental protection and conservation, which is a lot of them, and that's kind of where we fall in. So over 75,000 people per year serve in Americorps. And the crux of the mission of Americorps programs is to do good work and provide service, strengthen communities through that service, and the people going through those programs to develop their responsibility and create community connections, and also to expand opportunity for people going through to help develop them personally and professionally by giving them skills and knowledge to help them succeed going forward. Americorps members receive an education award as one of the benefits of service. Once they complete their term of the number of hours required, they receive a non-taxed financial award that can be used for qualifying expenses like tuition or student loans usually, but there are some creative ways to use it. I have one of our coworkers used it to take a class to learn how to build a birch bark canoe at one point because he was struggling to find new ways to use his service award. In addition to that, there's also a service stipend or a living allowance that is provided to Americorps members, and it's somewhat different than wages, but it is taxed similarly. So in terms of talking about our conservation corps, or what we call the Trail Conservation Corps, and you'll hear me use TCCC as an acronym for that. The way we typically function with Americorps is our crew members, their season starts usually in mid-May. Of course, coronavirus makes everything different, so they started late this year through late October. So they're just finishing up this week, typically on a Thursday through Monday schedule in order to be visible to the public so that people can see, hey, we're out here doing good work. Their term of service is typically 900 hours. And again, COVID, it's shortened, but only because they got a late start, and they're in 40-hour service weeks. And then the other how much, the living stipend provided varies. I believe the trail crew and stewards receive roughly $350 a week pre-tax. And I believe that's going to be going up next year a little bit to try and kind of keep pushing that amount up. And in terms of the education award in 2020, it was a little over $3 grand to be used for tuition or what have you. So here's a quick snapshot of the handsome devils that help coordinate these programs on the staff side. So we're a relatively small, scrappy organization, but we have grown recently. We've got roughly 28 employees, if memory serves. And these are some of the folks that you see here, roughly 8 of us, a little bit more now, that actively help plan and oversee this program. I love my job. I love what I do, and it's very gratifying to do it. And people tell me all the time, it's like, wow, I didn't know you could actually do that for a living. I'm like, I know, it's crazy, right? All right, so let's talk. So what do we actually do? Oh, why can I not? Let's talk about some of the things that we do. So one of the newer programs we have are the Trail Stewards, which is what I mentioned earlier. That's what Dylan does. So on the left here, you see at Breakneck Ridge, the busiest trail in North America. I might be off about that, but at least it used to be. And so people coming in via the train and by vehicle traffic, oftentimes unprepared for what to expect on a trail like Breakneck Ridge. And this is true all over this region. People coming from all over the place and don't necessarily know what they're getting into. Trail stewards help inform people about leave no trace practices, make sure they know where they're supposed to go, and make sure they're prepared. And they get into a lot of other stewardship activities out on the trails themselves. And I'll let Dylan talk a little bit more about that later, but they are kind of Jack and Jills of all trades in a certain sense, because they do a lot of different things. We have an aquatic invasives program that they do outreach to at boat launches in the region, trying to get people to make sure their boats are inspected for aquatic invasive species like cinquefoil, zebra mussels, things like that. You'll have to take someone else's word for it on a lot of the species because I don't know them that well, because that's not my bag. I'm a rock and dirt sort of guy. They also participate in research. What they're doing on the left here is setting up traps for what are called red bloody shrimp or something like that, which is an invasive crustacean in the Hudson River. So they do quite a number of things as well. They do invasive species removal too. Their land-based counterparts in the terrestrial invasives, or what they call the ISF, or the Invasive Strike Force, do targeted treatments and monitoring for certain emergent, what they call invasive species that are still manageable around the area. They do manual removal as well as herbicide treatment when it's warranted. And a lot of their work is very map-based, and they process a lot of data. And then there's us, the trail building crews. So we are kind of like a construction crew out in the forest. You learn a lot about working with materials and doing the sorts of things that a construction crew or a road crew might do. But instead of working with concrete and dimensional gravel that gets trucked in, you're often making it yourselves, and you're using whatever rock and dirt is available to create something that I'd say is a bit more bespoke. And the program itself, in normal years, we have a lot more people staying at our camp, which is called the Welch Trail Education Center in Harriman State Park. Struggling to find really good photos of the main hall, but that's it there on the left. And it's kind of like a little bit like a Norse meeting hall, a little bit with this arched architecture in the inside. It's very rustic, but it is nice. There is electricity, as you can see. And it does have amenities like the lake that's nearby. It's a full kitchen, and people, live in kind of group living situations in cabins nearby. And we've had to adjust that a bit this year with having less people there. Normally, you could have as many as 40 or 50 people living at camp in a typical season, and we'll see what happens going forward. I would like to get it back to something like that in the near future, because it's a lot of fun for people who stay there. What you see on the right is these are the crew members in the early part of the season undergoing wilderness first aid training, and that's just one of the trainings and certifications that you'd receive as a Corps member in a typical year. This year we were forced to give basic first aid, but in addition to that, we offer Leave No Trace trainer certification for Corps members. And so one of the biggest things that we try to do with this program is give people things that they can put on their resumes, give them the experience, certifications, and knowledge to then, if they want to get involved more in this field going forward, that they can. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing here, and we'll go back to the normal view, try to light myself a little bit better. So before we go any further and start taking questions, why don't I just have Frank and Dylan, have you kind of introduce yourselves and talk a little bit about what you've been doing this season. Whoever talks first.
I'll go first. So my name is Dylan Medici. I am with the Trail Conference Stewards. There are two steward groups, one based up at the Catskills and one based in the lower Hudson region. And the Catskills is the smaller of the two. There's about four of us, and I think there's about a dozen for the lower Hudson region. But part of what we do is education and preparation for hikers and park visitors. We do a little bit of light enforcement in that we remind people of some of the regulations, such as, not to litter and basic courtesy stuff. And since we, are given first aid and CPR training, we also do a little bit helping people who are injured or helping for emergencies. So basically, we are at the trailheads or at the summits of the more popular hiking trails. And, we record usage of the trails, and we do a little bit of light maintenance on our trail steward days. So basically, what our work week looks like is that on Friday and Monday, we're out on the trails doing maintenance. So clipping back brush, a little bit of light trail work like, removing blowdowns and things like that. And then Saturdays and Sundays, the two busiest days of the week when people get outside, we are on the trails. So you'll see the Hudson Stewards at Bear Mountain, Breakneck Ridge, and Croton at the trailheads, which are some of the most busy trails in the state. I believe Ben is correct in that Breakneck Ridge is, I think, the most popular day hike in America. So that's where the Southern Stewards are, the Hudson Stewards. And then the Catskills Stewards are at Giant Ledge and Slide Mountain in the Catskills. And for the first time this year, we're at Minnewaska State Park Preserve at Verkeerder Kill Falls and Gertrude's Nose. Unfortunately, Verkeerder Kill Falls is closed this season due to COVID, but we're still at the trailheads. We're still recording people who would have liked to have gone on those trails, but in those events at Verkeerder Kill Falls, which is closed, and I believe Croton, which was closed all season, we're giving people suggestions on where to go that's nearby. And so that's kind of one of our responsibilities, doing education. So, people, when they go out for a day, they're coming up from the city or possibly from New Jersey, driving several hours. They're reasonably going to be a little bit disappointed when the trail that they're going to is closed. So it's our job, since we're educated about the general area, to give them sort of suggestions so that they, don't drive up for 3 hours and then are suddenly hung out to dry because what they were planning to do is closed. So we're kind of educated on the surrounding area. We're given a little bit of everything, a little bit of geology, a little bit of ecology, a little bit of some kind of the tourist destinations in the area. And then we kind of disseminate that information out to all the visitors. The Catskill Steward is a little bit different than the Hudson program because we are at the summits in the Catskills, Slide Mountain being the highest mountain in the whole park, and I believe it's the highest mountain south of the Adirondack Park in the state of New York. It's just under 4,200 feet. So our responsibilities specifically for the Catskill Stewards are to basically, hike up every day and just be up there all day. So we are, I guess, a little bit of a more rugged program than the Hudson crew because most of us are usually camping up usually between Saturday and Monday, because Monday is usually trail maintenance in the Catskills. So it's a little bit more of a back country type of program. And that's kind of what we've been doing all year. It's a little bit different this year because of COVID, but those responsibilities are sort of the same. Basically education, first aid, and generally helping people out and trying to remind people to follow the rules. Keep your dogs on leashes, don't litter, try to stay on the trail, and just be courteous of other people.
All right, great, thanks. So Frank, he mentioned that they get into trail maintenance, like a lot of clipping and some light tread work. In your words, how does that differ from what we do?
Well, first of all, I'm really glad I got this job. I started on June 18th, and I'm really glad I found this job. I got to hike every day. I really enjoyed that. I started back in December. I volunteered for trail maintenance duty, and I did that for a while, and I liked it so much I decided to sign up. So here I am, started in Harriman. I worked a little bit in the Taconic, and I'm here now in Palisades. And we have about a week left. For the most part, I enjoyed this season. It's a
Well,
good
what
learning
have you been
experience.
working on?
What's that?
What can you tell them? What you've been working on mostly? Like what sort of work?
Oh, we started building trails. We started building tiers. We did a lot of boulder removal, tread work.
Yeah. Yeah, you should. I'll show some photos and video in a minute. But so what is so Dylan? What's your background before you came to this?
So before I came to this, my job title was I was in manufacturing, working over in northern Jersey. About a year, I guess, yeah, about a year ago, year and a half ago, back in March of 2019, I started really getting into backpacking. And as I got out there, I noticed that on all these maps that you buy throughout the northern New Jersey and lower New York region, all had this name on the maps, the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference, and they're fantastic maps. They'll show you everything. Shameless plug for the maps. They're fantastic. They show you all the elevations. They show you all the springs. They show you all the viewpoints. They are wonderful. You should go get them. Support the trail conference.
Yeah.
So as I got out, I noticed that the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference was on all these maps. And so I went to their website and I was looking at some of the events on there. And every so often before COVID hit, they would have these programs to go out, do a little bit of trail maintenance or just like this, have seminars or opportunities to learn. And so I got started volunteering with the trail conference at Morristown National Historical Park in New Jersey,
I remember that now.
where I had started doing a little bit of light trail maintenance. And I learned about the Conservation Corps program. And I initially applied back in August before I learned that the admissions don't open up until January. And once January to February came around, we started learning about, the whole pandemic thing. It became more and more attractive to me. And so I went back and forth as to whether I should actually apply to the program or not. And then I think when March or February or March came around, I applied, and then I got accepted, and then I sort of got out here. So the trail conference has given me a lot of opportunities to really learn a lot, because as a steward, you get a little bit of everything. You do a little bit of trail maintenance, you do a little bit of invasives work. I've worked with Brent Boscarino, who's the kind of head guy who's in charge of the invasives program, and he does a fantastic seminar every year where you learn to identify and do reporting for invasives. So I've done some of that. And being stationed at several different parks in New York, I've also had a lot of opportunities to learn about some of the other programs that go on in the area. There is a professional trail crew that is working up at Minnewaska State Park Reserve building stone staircases. So I got, in addition to the actual steward program, a lot of experience doing a lot of what the trail crew itself does in building stone staircases, using rigging lines and things like that. And so you kind of have a lot of experience going around, because when you're doing the trail maintenance on Mondays and Fridays, you're basically never at the same spot more than once or twice in a season. So you really get out there to a lot of different parks. And I didn't really have any experience at all going into the Conservation Corps, other than just kind of knowing how to hike and a little bit of a leave no trace.
Yeah.
Speaking a little bit about some of the other people who are on the Catskills program, one I think is a screenwriter or a playwriter, one is a former bartender, and one has, I think, a little bit of experience in a Conservation Corps for about 3 months. So it's really a very diverse set of people who you're working with. None of them are really, most of them aren't professionals. I know, Ben, you're a professional, but
I started doing this.
Yeah.
This is how I got started.
You're really given all the skills you need to do the work. And, it's hard work a lot of times, but you become very good at it. It's very satisfying, especially because you're not strictly getting paid to do it. You get a living stipend, but, you're still a volunteer. You're not really, exchanging your work for money. So it's kind of an entirely different atmosphere than doing actual work.
Mm-hmm. Remind me, Frank, going back years, what field were you in the past before you came to this?
Oh, I wasn't working before I came to this. I
Well,
was
I don't
having,
mean directly before, but like, what was your experience in?
well, I did a little bit of construction work in the past as a general helper. Um, and I thought this would be, something up my alley.
Yeah. And that's kind of the point that I'm trying to make for everyone is that this is a good kind of foot in the door and entree into this sort of field. You don't need a lot of previous experience, especially for the stewarding and trail work. You mostly just need a love for the outdoors and willingness to spend a lot of time outside and be somewhat physical. Uh, People come into this from straight out of college. People come into this into their 40s. Some of them have degrees in environmental science. Some are like me and came out of a history degree program and started doing trail work. So it, all you need to do it is a desire to get into this sort of work, and we help you along the way as long as people are willing to do the service part of it. We do the training and oversight. Um, so I guess elephant in the room is, I know what the answer is for Frank, more or less, but Dylan, what kind of accommodations have you guys had to make with COVID, since your job involves talking to people?
So the Catskills program has 4 people in it, and 3 of them are living at the Welch Trail Education Center, which has its own set of problems. But I've been switching between renting and being at home. So for those who weren't selected to live at the Welch Trail Education Center because it was a lottery system, which is the most fair way to accommodate, all these people who had to suddenly find, different accommodations. We were giving an additional living stipend to find housing in the area. So first I was living for about a month in the city of Newburgh, and then I moved up to Walden for a month before finally moving back to New Jersey. And so what we do, or what I do on a weekly basis is if I'm at the Catskills, usually I'll head up on Friday, which is the day that we typically did maintenance at Minnewaska State Park Reserve, which is about an hour and 40 minutes from my house in New Jersey. I would drive up on Friday and I would do trail maintenance at Minnewaska. And then from Minnewaska, I would drive up to the Catskills and mostly just choose a campsite at random and camp up there basically until Monday morning, sometimes even past Monday morning if I felt like doing additional hiking, because on Tuesday and Wednesday is an off day. So there's, the parks are very much less crowded than they are on the weekends. And really, I've been camping most of the season on my work days. There are days when, I would be driving 2 hours, 2.5 hours to get to the Catskills. And, that you don't really want to do that twice a day for a 4 to 6 hour trip. So it really just makes a lot of sense to do the camping. And so at the beginning of the season, we weren't really all that prepared to do camping. I mean, I had some camping equipment that I had used for backpacking, and actually 2 of our program stewards didn't really have any camping equipment whatsoever. And so it was a pretty first miserable night for some of them because one of them grabbed a tent from the camp, from the Welch camp that was full of holes, and it basically flooded out overnight. But that's not really something that you need to know how to do before you join the program. And it's just kind of learn as you go. Camping in general, you learn what works and what doesn't work. You kind of just go with it. For me specifically, I mean, I had a little bit of hiking experience before the program began, but I wasn't really like a pro hiker. I really got my butt kicked walking up and down slide at the beginning of the program because that's a 2.5 mile hike, and it's like I think 1,500 to 2,000 feet of elevation gain. So it definitely kicks your butt the first few times you do it. But as the program has gone on, I've had a huge amount of improvement. And for me personally, I have a cystic fibrosis, which is a respiratory disorder. So I'm not even like in very good shape. But I found that, just being out there and being able to do everything really, you really see a huge amount of improvement, and you really rise to the task if you don't get burned down for the first few days. Like if you decide that I'm going to do this, then you will absolutely do it. And that's kind of a lot with everyone. You didn't really know what to expect going in, but once you actually got started, and you just decide that you're going to take it one day at a time, you really learn how to do it. I don't think the Hudson Stewards quite camp out. I know that one of them has spent about a month at camp, living at camp, but actually living out of her tent. So really, there's a lot of opportunity to sort of decide how you want the program to go.
Yeah. Before we go any further, just want to pause and see anyone who's attending. Does anyone have any questions so far that they were wondering about and haven't heard? I think of the four of you. Quiet bunch, just here to learn. All right, so Frank, so what kind of things are we having to do for COVID on trail crew? Can you just describe what the daily protocols are, or just what a day in the life is, even like?
Well, we got to keep our masks on as much as possible. We got to, whenever we're in close quarters, working together, moving rocks and things like that, we just always have to keep the masks on. But when we spread out and work, we can take the masks off because we're outside. We've got a lot of fresh air. We got a lot of sunshine. We use all these hand tools, and at the end of the day, we just disinfect them all.
Yeah.
Those are pretty much the main protocols.
All right. May I ask you, what is the most enjoyment this job brings you? Thank you for the question. Okay, so what do you like most about it? And I think I already know the answer from at least.
Well, I love hiking. I love the exercise. I get to be outside every day. Get to eat lunch in the forest. It's great.
What about you, Dylan?
That's kind of the big part of it. I mean, being outside for 4 days of the week, and just being outside for all those days. I mean, we're not working intensely most days like the trail crew is. So the stewards, especially when you're, in the Catskills on top of a mountain, you're basically just on top of a mountain all day.
Yeah.
It's fantastic, really. And you're learning a lot of skills that are applicable if you want to continue further in the career field. I've been applying to a lot of positions in the National Park Service and in the several state park service, and the New York Jersey Trail Conference gives you a lot of the stuff that looks good in the resume if you're going to be applying those positions. And while you're acquiring those skills, you're basically having a great time.
Yeah, and similarly, Frank, tell them what you told me before we got started about what was happening the other day when it rained us out.
Which day was that?
Just the other day when it was raining super hard. What you said you were doing to keep earning hours.
Oh yeah, I was working on the resume course.
Yeah, so
you guys sent me.
I don't think I sent it, but I think probably Tori or
Nancy Tori did. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just one of the things. We have a professional development day that everyone in the Corps, along with some other organizations, meet up, and it's your chance to network with other professionals within this region in the field, with other organizations, to talk about workshopping, mock interviews, or working on how to build a resume, going forward. So we're very interested in helping people move forward from this to go on to what's next, because not everyone is going to want to necessarily roll rocks around in the forest as their career years from now. But the key is learning how to apply the skills and knowledge that you get in a program like this and make them work for you for what, and in some cases, this position or these positions help people figure out what it is they want to do, or what direction they want to take their interest in the outdoors and conservation. Just to give a better idea of what trail crew work is like, I've got a couple of videos from one of our other crew members who is unfortunately not here right now, but so this is what it's like doing tread work. So what we call excavating tread. So greatly sped up. So it's literally what you call pick and shovel work. You know, prying large boulders out of the ground, dig, clip some roots, pop it out more. So very physical.
Strenuous.
Yeah. You will get strong arms and shoulders. Let's see. That's not what I wanted. So here's another typical thing that we wind up having to do, hoisting large rocks with rigging equipment. That rock, looking at it, I would estimate that's around 1,300 pounds, maybe more. Solid granitic gneiss. We use winches and cables to move these things. That rock, if memory serves, was then drilled and split up into at least 2, if not 3, very large steps that were then incorporated into a staircase nearby. And I don't think we ever mentioned our program works in right now 3 locations in Western Harriman State Park, on projects in Sterling Forest State Park, just a little bit west of there, and then east of the Hudson River up in Hudson Highland State Park. And that's where this one was filmed right here, if memory serves, up on the Washburn Trail, which is very close to Breakneck Ridge. Just want to check one more time if anyone else on out there has questions for these guys or me or our Conservation Corps manager, who just happens to be on the line. Anything that she would be a better resource for answering. All right. Anything else either one of you guys would like to share or think of that you think's worth putting out there?
Well, if you're interested, give it a whirl. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. And not just for you, but if you all know someone who is like, well, that's not for me, I don't like bugs, but my neighbor's kid is going to be graduating soon and he doesn't know what he wants to do. This is something to share around, because this is the sort of program that flies under the radar. I am in Northwest New Jersey. Is there a contact out here? Well, interesting question. We are hoping to get a program going to run a crew in Morris County, which would hopefully be within your realm. Also, the people who live at camp pay no rent. So if people are interested in housing, and you're one of the ones who can live there, the sky's the limit in terms of where you could work, because we work all over, but mainly in New York right now. Cat bomb.
Cat.
But we do have a New Jersey program coordinator if you're interested in other volunteering outside of the Conservation Corps, because committing to 900 hours of service isn't for everyone. Some people are maybe better served taking on a volunteer gig, just becoming a trail maintainer or helping with invasives removal, or even just coming out for the occasional Saturday to do what we call an episodic workday. And her name is, and I will put it in here, so Kylie Yang. She is the New Jersey program coordinator, but also if you send an email to volunteer@nynjtc, that will put you in contact with our engagement team that deals with new volunteer inquiries. Although, if you just keep an eye on our main website, you will see listings for when we start to recruit for new members. Whether you or someone else is interested, send them that link, because we like to start recruiting early and start gathering interest. Anyone else?
What does
Very well.
what does Kylie Yang manage? because I need something to do after this program is over. I live in New Jersey, so I
Yeah.
need once I'm finished volunteering, I'm going to do more volunteering.
So Kylie is the New Jersey program coordinator. She kind of liaises with the volunteer leaders in New Jersey and helps kind of oversee all the different programs happening there. So, you know, she would help, she would work with the volunteer engagement folks, Kendra and Olivia, to match you with a volunteer region. If you're going to be you can work with a trail crew, or you can serve as a volunteer steward, or, you know, adopt a section of trail, and they would kind of connect you with what would work for you. You may not deal a whole lot with Kylie directly. You probably deal more with maybe a volunteer overseer, or a local trail chair or something like that. But yeah, it's once you talk to Olivia or Kendra, they're the ones that can set you up, because we definitely have plenty of segments of trail that need help going forward. So we always need volunteers. All right.
I'm just going to put my email in the chat, because I keep a running list of people that are interested, and
Yeah.
I send out emails when the application's live, any sort of updates. So if anybody's interested or wants more information or just wants to be put on my list for the 2021 season, I'm going to put it right. That is my email.
Okay, great. And additionally, it is worth mentioning that in normal non-COVID years, our trail crews, and the stewards do this too, but work with volunteer groups, or have weekend work days where people can come out and work with the trail crew, or come out and participate in a hands-on skills workshop to learn how to build rock wall, or learn how to construct and install drainage structures on a trail. Not sure yet what 2021 is going to look like, but fingers crossed. Even if you can't join a trail crew, if you're interested in this stuff, that's another way to get involved. So keep an eye out for the volunteer listings next year, and there hopefully will be chances to do that as well. All right. Thank you all very much for being here. Frank, Dylan, I appreciate you guys being on the line to answer questions.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks, Tori.
Bye, guys.
Have a good evening.
Bye.